Hello, everybody, and welcome again to our monthly update on Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, May. This month, there will be only me, Luis, as you'll see here on the first slide, and Martin from Recann. Martin is recently joined Recann, and he'll tell you something about himself in a minute or two. So, this is our disclaimer and what we are going to cover today. So the format for those of you who haven't joined us before is we try to allow you for some questions and answers with each topic. We'd appreciate it. We can only really answer one or two questions. Use the chat window, keep it short and clear. We'll also answer short and clear. If you need to dive in deeper, please contact us. There's a survey. At the end, there'll be a URL to it, but you'll also get an email with a URL to it. We'd appreciate it if you fill it in so we get some feedback and can improve this for your benefit. Materials. If you want, there's a PDF version of the presentation that you can download from the handouts section in the GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar application. So expand that and download it if you want it. And there will be a recording available later on our YouTube channel if you want to see this, or if you have somebody or colleague who missed it and would like to see it. The agenda. The first thing we're going to do is Recann is going to tell you who they are and why they're here. We're going to give you some news from SABS, which I represent. The D365 customer engagement updates. We're not having any this month. Unfortunately, we could not make it. Pedro Azevedo, who's our lead there, is traveling right now, and this was unexpected. We apologize. We'll make up for it next month. Finance and operations updates will go through LCS, platform application, VS and VSTS, and Power BI. We don't have anything special, but we have a lot of the other stuff. So we'll still have plenty of updates to give you. Tips and tricks. We actually start with tips and trick, and we'll give you something interesting. Finally, final questions and answers, and a wrap up. Now, Recann. So I'm going to hand over to Martin. Martin.
Thank you, Louis. So, hi everyone. Welcome to May's D365 Unified Operations webinar. To quickly introduce myself, I'm Martin Raby. I have been either met with some of you or spoken with some of you over the phone. For those of you that I've not spoken with before, I'm here to help with the delivery and resources within the Microsoft Dynamics team here at Recann. For those that are joining us for the first time, and before Louis begins providing you with some updates from Microsoft this month, I'd like to give you a quick overview of Recann, our services, and how we can potentially help you and your companies we're working with. So now we have two offices in the UK, both London and Manchester, and have a global coverage within the Dynamics market. We provide both consultancy and permanent resource in both implementations and support of the Microsoft Dynamics suite of technologies. As a business, we challenge the norm and try to add value. We help host and deliver complimentary training workshops with XLabs in order to address the skill gaps within the Dynamics market and develop a deeper understanding of the market we recruit within. We believe this provides with distinct advantage over some of our competitors. Recann is APS CEO approved consultancy, which is seen as a badge of quality within the industry. To achieve this status, both our clients and candidates are fully reference checked. For a full overview of the service we provide, please follow the link on the screen. Louis, can you please take me to the next slide? Right, quick updates for the news this month. We are busy planning our next complimentary Dynamics 365 workshop in partnership with XLabs, which is going to be held in London and Manchester in September. If you would be interested in attending the workshop, please get in touch with myself or Louis for further info. April has been seen a huge number of permanent requirements for D365 resource on a permanent basis, both in the Netherlands and in Germany. So if you'd be interested in to work in either place, please get in touch with further information. As always, you will find information about live jobs on our website. However, please do get in touch if you want to discuss future pipelines. Recann is hosting a dashboard in-day workshop, and that's going to be in London on the 26th of June. So please get in touch if you're interested in learning more about Power BI. For any information regarding market news, whether that's salary or rate surveys information, what's in demand, and also the market that's in the market, please get in touch. Right, I hope you all enjoy the webinar. Back to you, Louis.
Thank you very much, Martin. So we move forward to something about who's SABS. So quickly, to put some faces in it. For those who have been in these updates before, you'll see that we have some extra people who have joined us. I will get to that. These are some of our clients who haven't shown this before, but this is so you have an idea that even though we are not a big company, we have some top-notch clients already. And in terms of news, the biggest news is we've had Pedro Rodriguez, who has joined us and has already started, and Martin Draab, who is very known because he does a lot of postings and does a lot of answers a lot of stuff on the net. They'll join us on the 23rd. So these are all people we've worked with before and are joining us now. So that basically is the news from us for this month. Now I'll take you to what's the interesting stuff for most of you. Tips and tricks. We have actually been doing quite a lot of work recently with role-based security, and we've been surprised at how little people know, even the partners. So we, over the next few 4 or 5 probably updates, we're going to be providing tips about that are useful if you have to work with role-based security, which you all do. For this month, the one we have is that there's a report, which is actually an inquiry in there to figure out user role assignments. It's in system administration inquiries, and it's called user role assignments. What this does is the report generates a view of the current user roles in your system and what are roles and who's assigned to what. It includes all the users who have a role assigned. It will not include users who do not have a role assigned. And you can, the report you can limit to a specific set of users if you want. And the user role assignment parameters pane allows you to filter in different ways. The usefulness of this is that you can see what roles you have, and as you know, licensing is connected to the roles. So it's a quick way to get an overview and check if you have a match there or if you're misaligned in terms of licensing. Next month we'll have another one, and as we go through it, you will see how it's actually easier than people imagine to figure out what your licensing needs are and what exactly you're using, and if you need to change and adapt. So that was the tip for this month. So on to the real updates. That's the tip I just showed before. I'll give it to you at the end if we still have time, so that we get on to the updates. The updates, I have this one from February, so we've already been through this one. But recently we got a lot of questions and people have been a little confused about it. What we found is people are downloading the wrong VHDs, and the idea of this is you used to be able to download it from Connect. That's not available anymore. The only place where you can download it now is in your asset library. You have to go in the downloadable VHD tab there, as you can see to the left, and then you actually have to click the import button. That gives you a list on the right side, which is the picking list, and you have to pick it from there. One problem is this list is not very wide, and I've actually stretched the name field to be able to see it, but every time you go to it, it sort of cuts it off, and you can't see which one you're downloading exactly. So people tend to download the wrong ones, and they're all mixed in there for different PUs, but also for different regions. So there's a whole set there for India, for example. And because it's not very visible, people pick the wrong ones. And of course, then when they decompress them and put the whole thing together, then they got a mess instead. So this is mostly a matter of you have to be systematic about this and then check what you've actually imported and make sure that you have the matching files, that they don't actually, that they're not different versions of it, because it's all just one flat list in there. There's no possibility of sorting. So that's why I'm repeating it. I hope that helps if any of you have been getting confused about downloading VHDs to use internally. I hope that will clarify it. Critical X++ updates. So now this is where we get to April 2018. So previously, Microsoft had said that critical X++ updates would only be available and applicable to production environments. Now they've gone back on that. They are also available for online pre-production environments. So pre-production environments are all your non-production environments, development environments, test environments, and so on. And they will only be removed from on-premises environments. So you will not be able to use this feature if you have an implementation that's on-premise. So that's nice, because the vast majority of people have cloud implementations and not on-premise. So it will be good for almost everyone, for most people. Project creation. There is it used to be that as soon as you signed up, Microsoft and LCS would create an implementation project for you. And now they will only do that if you have a minimum of the mandatory 20 licenses. And so without that, you will not actually, when you log into LCS, it'll just your recent projects and your portal will have no projects in there. But you can create your own if you want by clicking the plus that you see there. And you can use that to experiment, to educate yourselves, to train. You will just not be able to, from there, create a production environment or an implementation project. So only Microsoft can do that, and they'll only do that once you have the minimum number of licenses. Environment monitoring. There's been some improvement in this. For somebody who uses it regularly, the usability and performance are important. There have been some improvements. The usability is still not perfect, but it's improving, and particular performance is nice. It has been a little slow. And now something else is that you need to select a user session. So if you are looking through the activity, you see that the user sessions on the left, selected, and then you can see a detailed list of the interactions the user had on the right side. So that is a little nicer to use, and especially if you are doing support or trying to debug in performance problems, it's very useful that you can see what users were doing. So I hope you enjoy it. Dynamics for talent. This is not finance and operations, but the Microsoft strategies is that the HR part is going to move to talent. And so they have now added support in LCS for it. It's not horribly much, but you can now deploy demo data when you deploy Dynamics 365 for talent directly from LCS. The same data set, it's the same data set that's used in the test drive experience. And what you have to do is when you deploy a talent environment, you have to include the demo data option before you begin it. That's marked there in red, so check that and you will have an environment with demo data. Now, you cannot update an existing deployment. That is, if you deploy it without demo data, you can't go in afterwards and deploy data to it. So you're stuck with making the decision at deployment time. But it's nice that you have that option. Now, DTS documentation. This DTS is the translation service. It was very thin. It's been improved, and the way you get to it is you go into the DTS, into the translation service page, either from the portal, the main portal page, or from a project page. And if you click on the question mark at the top, you'll see then the first thing you have there is the service documentation. This will take you to Microsoft Docs, and there it's now quite comprehensively explained how to use it, how it works, what to do and what not to do. So that is in terms of helping you if you are working with multiple languages and you need to translate. So remember, you can use it for translating label files, and you can now also use it to translate hard copy documentation in Word format. Remember, it actually does a pretty good job, but you also need a human being to review it afterwards. Some stuff comes out a little weird. And remember also, it seems to work better if you translate to and from English. So for example, if you need to translate from French to German, don't translate directly from French to German, translate from French to English, English to German, and the other way around too. So if you're doing that and you've been challenged about how to use it and how it works, the documentation now is pretty good. You should be able to work it out. Next step, and before we go then, does anyone have any questions? I'll give you a minute or two. Oh, can you easily remove demo data? So there's a question which is, can you easily remove demo data implementation? So I'm not sure I understand the question correctly. So I'm going to answer what I believe the question is, and that's once you have deployed demo data in an environment, can you remove it? Now, if it is to an environment that you control, that is an unproduction environment, yes, but not from LCS. Basically, there's no facility in the LCS. If it's an environment you have access to the VMs, to the virtual machines, you can go and swap the database that it's using, and there are replace it, overwrite it, restore a new one over it, just like you would if it was on premise. In production, you don't have access to it, so no. And there's no, you cannot install demo data into a production environment. Microsoft does that for you, and the same for any add-on environments that you have. Add-on environments, actually, when you click a button to deploy them, you configure it, and then like the ones that are deployed to your own Azure subscription, they are not automatically deployed. It goes through Microsoft, and there's not even the possibility in there to deploy demo data. You'd have to deploy explicitly an environment of type demo, and then you have the option of deploying demo data. So I hope that answers the question. Any more questions from somebody? Nope, that's the only question. I have a poll. This tends to be a little dry and boring without a lot of interaction. So I'd like to ask everybody a question about something we are thinking of doing going forward. And the question is, are you interested in D365 finance and operations on premise? So the poll's going out now. I'd appreciate if you tell me that the options are yes, no, maybe. We've seen that we're being asked quite a bit more, and we'd like to know if there are a lot of people considering it. And I can tell you that right now, it seems like from the people participating today, there's quite a bit of interest. 50% are interested. Okay, everybody's voted, and I can tell you the results of it is that actually at least around 2/3 of the people present today are interested in on-premise. So the good news I have on that is you'll see as we later, as we are planning on starting to cover on-premise too. So that closes the poll. Thank you. And let's get to the platform updates then. So platform updates. The latest one is PU15, and this is available to everyone. So unlike 13, for example, that was only available to people who are enrolled in the CAAP program. It has build number 70, and it comes together with, well, it was actually from March, but it's the one that's being used now for the latest application update. So the application update 8. Or the application 8.0 requires PU15 as a minimum. The build number is over there. So the names have been changing of PUs and the updates. So for the future, we are referencing it internally, all of these by the build numbers, because that makes sure we got the right one. There's very, very comprehensive documentation on what's in this. It's called Spring 18 Release Notes. The URL is here. You don't need to write it down because you can just download the PDF. It's in there. It's a lot of stuff. So choose a moment when you have the time to really read through it. And it both covers, so these release notes both cover the platform update. They also cover the application update from Spring. It's too extensive to go through it, but there's a lot of stuff. I'll go through the highlights. So if you see anything that's interesting for you, go read it. And if nothing else, I would still recommend it's worth a read or at least browsing through. So there's a whole lot of bug fixes, and there's a link over there to where you can see what bugs have been fixed. There are improvements in accessibility. So Microsoft has been doing quite a bit in improving accessibility. So if that's interesting to you, there's useful stuff for you there. Client-based alerts. Now, this is something that used to exist and then disappeared. And now Microsoft has put it back, and it's actually quite well done. And this, as in previous versions, allows you to set up alerts so that given certain events, you will receive an alert. This was a very, very useful feature that for some strange reason didn't make it into the first versions of 365. But now it's there, and I really like the way they've done it. Now, another very cool new feature is the embedded Power Apps. So there's information about to do it there, and if you go to that URL, the cool thing about it is you can write a Power App and you can embed it directly in the forms of your Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. And so any Power App, basically. It's up to imagination to get ideas and come up with ideas of what sort of Power Apps you could develop. Another thing that's also worthwhile mentioning and highlighting for PU15 is the extension and overlaying presented for your people who are developers. It used to not be in the order that was recommended. I'm not sure this is a big deal, but now it presents it in the order is recommended, so that you're more likely to make the right choice instead of accidentally making the wrong choice. So that's a nice thing for developers. The message center has been upgraded to something called the new action center. Now, this I'll let you see that. Go see the release notes. Because not a lot of interest in this, so I'm not going to dwell on it. More stuff still in this is moving master data from one environment to another using the Excel add-in. This the documentation actually mentions that this is for talent. I don't believe that that's the only intention, but the whole idea of this is that it's now possible that you could use the Excel add-in to work with data in an instance or an environment of your finance and operations, and then you can actually change the address of the instance or the environment and write it back to the other environment. So basically you could use this as a way of getting data or moving data between your environments or your instances. I don't think it's the most elegant, but a lot of people like Excel. So if you don't want to use the data management framework, which is what we recommend, this is always an option. that it'll become more interesting, and that's probably why they mention talent. If you're moving data between, for example, talent and operations, finance and operations, and the other way around, since talent does not support the data management framework. Now, there's something important here and this is mostly for the functional guys. They're phasing out one voucher because of the issues it has. So one voucher, for those of you who don't know, it's used for general journals, fixed asset journals, so all types of journals, and in the context of a single voucher. Now, there are a bunch of problems. It's being phased out, but it's being phased out in steps, so there's a schedule for it. So if you are using one voucher, you need to look into this and make sure you find another solution, because it's going to disappear. And it's used very commonly, so I would not be surprised if many of you are using it and need to look in this. Now, another interesting note under the release notes for PU15 is something that we've already seen before, but it's that power users can add custom fields to forms. Now, what happens is often customizations, a lot of customizations are actually just adding fields to a form to capture some information. There's no business logic behind it, nothing else. Now, what this allows is that an administrator can do this and from the UI, so without development, directly in the forms from PU15, and save it, and they can even then export it or share it as a personalization to other, and transport it to other environments. So that means, if you're doing these simple customizations, there's no need to go through the whole development process and a lot of coding. It can just be done by somebody with the necessary privileges to do it. The certifications are the same, but they get mentioned again. We haven't really seen that they've changed, so there might be some detail in there that we missed. So if certification is important to you guys, you might want to go double check on it, see if there was anything new. And there was support for display and edit methods on form data sources. Now, this, for guys who are not developers, sounds like mumbo jumbo, but for you who are developers, this is important, because display and edit methods are used quite commonly if you're a developer. So that's basically it for platform updates. So any questions at this point? Nope, no further questions. Well, then I will move on. Application updates. So this is 8.0, but for everybody's reference, there's the build number. It's 8.0.13. All of what's in it is covered in the spring release notes. So along with the PU15, the improvements have been in the areas that you see here listed after this. I will go through them in a little more detail in the next pages. So this is just so that you have a quick reference here. So let's look at them. In business productivity, so alerts, as I've already mentioned, so there's some overlap in some of this stuff that's is in the release notes for the application and the PU. But alerts, there's an optimization advisor, the project timesheet mobile, so I'm not going to dwell on this because there's a lot of stuff. Edit default project fulfillment hours, reserve project resources past the task end date, person search, data sharing for customer and vendor tables. There have been changes there. One voucher deprecation I've already covered. Now, the idea is, if any of these tell you something, then it means you should go check, look for them. So they're all covered in the release notes in that document. So if you see something here, then definitely go read that stuff. Okay. Extensibility and customization. So there have been updates to customization through extensions only, and this is mostly important for developers or people who are dealing with developers. Extensibility requests. if this one is important, so I'll explain it, is that now, so from application 8.0, you can, in PU 15, you can no longer use the old model for customizing finance and operations, which was called overlaying. You can only do extensibility, but it has been a challenge because people have traditionally, or the traditional model was overlaying, and people have had to redesign and refactor their customizations to use this new model, which is called extensibility. And Microsoft has been, as quickly as possible, been adding technical options in this, so you could do that. It's not always straightforward or simple, and it can be a challenge. There are situations where it's impossible in practice. If that happens, you now have the option of requesting an extensibility request directly from Microsoft, and they will try to support it so that you can actually refactor or redesign your code to use extensions instead of overlaying. Now, we've already mentioned embedding Power Apps in workspaces and forms, and the custom fields we also mentioned. That's where, instead of having to do development work to add fields where you're just capturing data, you do it in the application, and then administrators can manage that. There's been improvements for integration, mostly integration with common data service. There are more scenarios that configure, and common data service is used for integrating and exchanging data between almost any system. There are over 100 connectors, and there are some of the scenarios that are now supported are the integration of Dynamics for field service and the integration for project service automation with finance and operations. So they basically come out of the box. You might have to tweak them a little bit, but the essence of it should be there for you. Improved support, telemetry-based, knowledge-based recommendation. So this is basically that the telemetry is in LCS, there's information about your environment and what they're doing, and it's used to identify, in this case, the improvements is it uses knowledge base articles to identify application hotfixes that apply to your tenant. So basically, there have been improvements in figuring out what hotfixes you're missing in your environments and suggest them to you. That goes on the recommendations when entering a support case. Following, so if you enter a support case, there's some extra intelligence there that tries to make recommendations on knowledge base articles that might relate to your case. And then there's the report production outages. Is not new, but now there's the flow basically has changed. It's almost new that the flow has changed. If your production environment dies and you need to report it, because only Microsoft can deal with that. Supply chain management. So this is mostly for the functional guys. So there have been changes in the RFQ process, changes in partial shipments, immediate replenishment, reason codes have been added to warehouse counting and adjustment, batch balancing is enabled for advanced warehousing processes, and there are analytical workspaces of Power BI for cost management added in there. So to give you some better insights into what's your cost management related to supply chain management. Globalization, there's India localization that's out. So as a matter of fact, if you go in and try to download the VHD from your asset library in LCS, you'll see that there's a whole VHD there specifically for India because of the specificity of the Indian market. And there is improved configuration for globalization. Compliance. Now, this is important because by the 25th of this month, everybody who is based in the EU or has clients, vendors in the EU needs to consider GDPR compliance. Microsoft has a lot of useful information that can help you, and even tooling. Use the URL to go and see it. There are also the accessibility enhancements, which we've talked about before. The Microsoft also has a lot of good information and tooling in there that you can use and you should look at. Definitely, you should, everybody. I assume most of you are in one way or another deal with the European Union, and you gotta take this into consideration. Just for those of you who don't know, you can be fined up to 4% of your pre-tax revenue if you fail to comply. Now, that's a lot of money for most people. It could make the difference between you making money or not making money as a business. So important stuff there. And servicing, performance, and deployment, there have been some improvements in this too. So the most interesting, so the improved delivery of platform and financial reporting. So this is being managed, and the changes intended to improve service reliability and to ensure that customers have the latest improvements and fixes. Platform and reporting updates are backward compatible. So this has been a little unreliable, and so now it should be stop giving you the problems that we've been having before. Upgrade automation. The upgrade automation really means that it's been made into self-service operation for the customer, also for non-production environments. And the service hardening is really Microsoft's added alerting in their support. So alerts do require that Microsoft adds the necessary support behind the scenes technically for core business processes. So they've been added there, and for the service hardening is also Microsoft is in that they're also referring to that the performance of loading the most commonly used forms is improved. They have until now. It's a bit of a slow process. Sometimes you wait, and it's going to be a little annoying. Microsoft has done some improvements there. And the lifecycle sandbox, self-service automation, and RDP lockdown. So now all T2 environments and above, you no longer will have RDP access to them, so you cannot access the VM. And so Microsoft has provided alternative ways to do some of the stuff that needs to be done, since you cannot actually go directly to the machine. Oops. So this brings me to the section this is why I asked you before if and who was interested in on-premises deployments, and we are in this month we don't have anything, but we were considering, and from the answers I got, I think from next month we'll also be covering on-premise updates, as it seems to be getting traction and therefore becoming relevant. VS and DTS updates. Were there any questions? Sorry, on the previous stuff. Or just to make sure that everybody is still with us, I have another poll that I'd like to ask you, and that is what products you're interested in. This is try and help us adjust our coverage during these updates. So here it is. So we've listed the different ones. There's one there that I have to call attention, is that finance operations business is now Business Central. So it's what used to be NAV. I'll give everybody a chance to vote on this. Almost everyone has voted, I can see. Okay, so the results are actually interesting. Half the people attending are interested in flow logic apps and power apps. That fits with what we are hearing. 17% are interested in talent. That's good to know. 17% are interested in Business Central, so the old nav, operations business, and 70% are interested in finance and operations. That's no surprise. What I'm actually surprised to see here is that there was no one present today who's interested in customer engagement, which is the CRM part, because we often now are faced when we talk to prospects or customers that they're actually evaluating it, because basically everything is Dynamics 365. So that is an interesting result. Thank you, everybody. So let me move on. VS and VSTS updates. So this is mostly for, so VS for the developers, but VSTS is for everybody. There's a lot of stuff in there. And the team at the Visual Studio VSTS Studio is working 2-week sprints. And they're providing the updates as a video that you can see on YouTube. So we're not gonna say what they're saying. We're just gonna highlight during these monthly updates anything that we think is particularly useful for Dynamics 365 and especially finance and operations. But there you have the URLs. So there were 2 sprints in April. You have the URLs, you can go see it. And if like many of us, you don't like to read documentation, they have YouTube videos there where they have a PM who goes through them with you, and that makes it quite nice. You can even download it, of course, and see it offline. So there were 2 videos there that are 2 sprints that you can see. We did not find anything, however, in these 2 sprints, in the April sprints, that was worth highlighting specifically for the stuff we do. And we've already done our tips and tricks, and I see that today we're finishing a little early, which is nice for a change. I'd appreciate it. So we'll wrap up to the feedback so that we know what you feel and help us improve. I'd like to thank everyone, and naturally I hope to see you all next month. And Martin, I think, would like to say a word too. Martin, will you say a word on behalf of Recann before we wrap up for today?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we hear loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you. My headset was so thank you very much for listening to the webinar. How have you all found today? I hope you found it all useful. If you're looking to working on a project or implementation and you either require additional consultancy, resource or training, please get in touch with either myself or Louis. As a small favour, we would also be grateful if you would like to share any posts of the webinar online in order for us to help share this information to a wider Dynamics community. I'd like to thank you again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Louis.
Thank you very much, everybody, and I hope to see you next month. Have a great weekend.